Hello, Ian.
Hello, Emma. Good
How
to
are
talk
we
to you.
today?
Yeah, good. Very well
That's
today. Thanks.
good to hear. Here we are. We're getting used to this Zoom technology. We've been doing this for what, a week and a half, 2 weeks now, and
Yeah, yeah.
I think it's going well.
It's going well. It's not quite like meeting in person, but it's better than not meeting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Mm,
So I've just hit record, and we're going
okay.
to be hearing from Ian Massey today, who he's going to change his hat for us today, and he's going to be speaking to us as the director of Upland Consulting.
Mhm.
And what we're sort of talking about, what we have been talking about, is how to get through the here and now, what contingencies we have in place for businesses now, and how we're going to get through this in the next however long it's going to last. But what I was wondering, Ian, is hopefully, and I'm sure that it will, it is going to end. And indeed, we have no idea when that's going to be. Let's hope it's not too long. It could be 3 months, could be 6, who knows. What I would like to know is when that recovery does come, when the end does come, what is that recovery going to look like? And is there anything that we could possibly be doing now to start preparing for when that recovery does come?
There is, Emma, and speaking as a strategy consultant, basically that's what Upland does. I suspect that the recovery is going to be very strong, that there's going to be a very strong rebound. I think there will be a lot of opportunities, and I think the really interesting opportunities will not be in business as usual. I think this is a great opportunity where we have time to reinvent businesses, to think about the creation of new markets, to consider how we can provide our value to the world in different ways. And in some cases that might be quite simple, like doing more of this online work with clients. In some cases it might involve a complete change of business model from the old world to the new. I think a lot of retailers, for example, are going to see that. So my advice would be, yes, we don't know when the recovery is going to come, but I suspect it's going to be strong, and I'm perfectly sure it's going to give us opportunities to create new business models and new markets. There's going to be a sense of newness about the world. There's going to be a little magic moment when we say we've put all that behind us and we have the opportunity to start doing things differently. And it won't last, and human nature won't change, but we'll have that moment which, if we take it, we can change course in our businesses. So there will be a whole lot of brand new kinds of opportunities and kinds of markets in the world after COVID-19 is my tip.
Yeah, I think so. What kind of markets do you think, are we going to be seeing new different gaps perhaps in the markets, or perhaps in our own industries even? I don't know.
I think, yes, definitely. Not all of the travel that we used to do physically is going to come back. So I think a lot more business is going to be getting done by technologies like this one, like Zoom, but also by technologies like the virtual shared whiteboards and the messaging applications and so on that we've been looking at in Upland over recent weeks. I also think there's going to be quite a fundamental change, or there can be quite a fundamental change in how we work together in teams. It really came home to me forcefully. I read in the Financial Review yesterday or the day before that now that all of these large companies have got their workforce dispersed and working at home and virtual workforce and so on, what they're doing, some of them, is they're panic buying the kind of software that allows you to spy on remote workers. So they're panic buying these keystroke loggers and the things that look at what websites you looked at and timing clocks and things like that. And I thought, well, gee, what a monumentally stupid way to miss the point. These corporations have just leapt back in time 100 years to the point where they're trying to micromanage a workforce that's now dispersed out there and using virtual tools as though it was a sweatshop,
yeah,
100 years ago. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Wow. That.
So here we have the opportunity to start to define the work we do together in terms of outcomes, in terms of its effect on the world, in terms of what you produce when you do your work. And to go back to focusing on just the input, on how many hours a day you spend, or how many keystrokes you log per day, I think that's a real losing strategic mindset. And I think one of the things that will not go back to so-called normal after this is the office block floors full of people in cubicles getting worked as though they were robots. I think the nature of work is one of the things that's going to change.
Yep, I can definitely see that. That's really interesting what you say. That's really sort of going back to the past almost, isn't it?
Yeah.
As far as management goes.
Yeah. Like, where does that end? You have a foreman driving around checking on everyone at their home desk. I mean, this is the moment
Absolutely.
to take your workforce into your confidence, to construct their tasks around outputs and around what they're providing to the world, and to start empowering people to take responsibility for their own output.
Rather than focusing on how they get to those outputs in the first place. Yeah. So do you have any ideas or any suggestions of what we can be looking at now to really focus our workforce on getting to those outputs, or even if there may be some different outputs out there that businesses can now start focusing on that perhaps we haven't seen before?
Yeah, look, there will be, and it's absolutely characteristic of this sort of shift that it won't come from the top down. The bosses won't think of it on their own. So I think the critical step at this point is to take your workforce into your confidence and say, all right, how could we reconfigure this? Nearly everybody who's now got a taste of working remotely or working from home is saying, I really prefer it. Maybe not for the rest of my life, but I really like having the autonomy and the comforts of home around me and not having to do the commute on crowded freeways and that sort of stuff. So it's the moment to start that dialogue with your workforce and say, okay, this is the way we all prefer it. And we don't mind not paying all that rent for office space anymore. But how are we going to configure your work so that we can make you responsible for, in a stewardship sense, what you produce, instead of micromanaging you task by task?
Yes, it's interesting, and it's certainly something that you and I work on quite a bit. I mean, we essentially work from home anyway, but we have certainly come into some new technologies like Zoom and like the online whiteboard that we were looking at the other day. I guess there's certainly so many things out there at the moment, and you and I know have been strategizing about the things that we can do as a business going forward, the things that we can do differently. And I guess that's what you're saying. You know, the managers and the business owners really need to start thinking outside of the box.
That's right. And look, it's in dialogue with you that we come up with these new ways of working. It's not me as the owner of the business dreaming stuff up and imposing it, because that doesn't work. Innovation top down is a contradiction in terms.
Absolutely.
But, you know, there's another thing that we're seeing happening with Upland as a business that I think is going to be more prevalent in the future. And that is, the boundaries are becoming permeable. We're almost becoming boundaryless. We have a Slack channel on which we communicate with our digital marketing consultants. It's part of our internal communications tool, but we've just opened up the boundary there. We have the webmaster on there. So the way that we collaborate with our business ecosystem is not going to be, we'll sit down and have a meeting in someone's boardroom and someone will take notes and we'll have memos and things like that. It will be, you're working with us in real time.
Absolutely.
You know? You're on Slack with us, or whatever the tool is. You're on that virtual whiteboard with us.
Absolutely.
So I think the future of work, again, is going to be more about breaking down the traditional hierarchies, breaking down everything that's symbolised by those monolithic office blocks,
Yeah.
so that people become more responsible for their own output and people get to contribute and participate in defining that output.
Absolutely. And, you know, I think this is a really great opportunity for employees of businesses to show and to prove to employers that they can show initiative, that they can work autonomously, all these different skills that perhaps, you know, working in a general office hasn't possibly afforded them too much.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? It's been a colossal waste of talent, because all of those people who get into the workforce and get treated like dummies and get micromanaged, outside of that, they're running tennis clubs, they're running P&C groups, they've got kids in school, they've got a family to manage. They're doing amazingly complex tasks of management and coordination very successfully. And corporations are just asking them, would you please just lose all that when you walk in the door?
Yeah.
Like, it's stupid.
Yeah.
Stupid.
It really is. And in this time of, you know, the importance of work-life balance, what better time than to really bring those two worlds almost together,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
and do some good together, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. And you know what? One more point, if I may.
Please.
For once, the government's on our side here. Okay, it used to be my regular advice to everyone: if someone from the government says, I'm from the government and I'm here to help you, run for the hills.
Yes.
But I'm changing that advice right now, because the various stimulus packages, and particularly the JobKeeper package, are precisely designed so that anyone who has to shut down, slow down, stand people down, whatever it may be, can bring that team back on stream again very quickly when the crisis has passed. So we don't have to go out and recruit, retrain, all of that stuff.
No.
You get a government subsidy and you get a lot of practical help from the government to keep that team intact, even if they're on a long holiday or they're down to part-time work or something like that, so that when we get into this new world, you're ready to go.
Yep.
You're ready, put the pedal to the metal. You
Yep.
don't have to start from ground zero again. I think that's one of the smartest things I've seen our government do.
I agree. I have to say I've been really happy with what they've brought out. You know, it makes you feel a little bit safer, a little bit more backed up, I guess, in this really uncertain time. But I completely agree, and I really like the upbeat opinion you've got here, in that let's use this time, let's use the resources that are being given to us, and let's use the time to really plan for the next stage in business and life, I suppose.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. That would definitely be my advice.
Yeah. Well, Iain, this has been a really wonderful chat. It's nice to actually talk about some upbeat and positivity at the moment. I think that there's definitely some points there that we should all be able to take on board. So thank you.
Can I make one more point?
Please do.
Just before we go, Emma, if you don't mind. And that is, again, thinking forward to the day when we put this behind us. The businesses that will succeed, the businesses that will take off quickly, will be the ones that are remembered for what they did during the crisis. For their kindness, for their community outreach, for staying visible, for staying helpful, whatever it is. Each business will be different. But the ones that are ready to move on to new success will be the ones that are remembered fondly for how they behaved during the crisis.
Extremely valid and good point. I agree. Well, Iain, thanks so much. Great chatting. And
thank you very much, Emma.
Yep, we'll be Zooming again very soon, I'm sure.
We'll talk soon.
Okay.
Bye.